Good morning, everybody. November 14th. So, let me put this out there so people can stop asking me about it. One second here, and boom, there we go. The free newsletters in description and the wait list for the trading communities in the description for those that are going to ask about it. So I will just leave that there. Do with it what you will. At a minimum, I would sign up for the newsletter since it's free. And in my opinion, it is pretty amazing, in my opinion. So what would I put out there for free? It's definitely worth your time to read it. So I do want to go through a bunch of stuff. There is a bunch going on. I think that some of the most important points that I'm seeing are this, and I don't think we have a lot of people talking about this morning. Okay, so TrendSpider is going to have to fix this. They're running a special, by the way. I have a link. It's like 65% off for them. I will put that out there right now. I'll post it. It's actually a pretty good deal. Let's get rid of this and this. Okay, perfect. 3 minutes of my life. All right, clearing up their nonsense. Here we go. 200-day moving average. See where we're at? Okay. See where you are at. Let's get rid of the notes, and we're going to get rid of all the annotations. And I really want you to focus on this for a moment. This does not usually end well. So if this was to change, and if this was to end well, that is something that people are going to have to start paying attention to. Okay. So I would most certainly be paying attention to this and how it's acting. All right. That's where I would be right now. Okay. I would be paying attention to this. Is it going to reject like it's done before? And even if it does reject, does that mean it's going to come down? I'm not so sure because of this V, right? So you have this cup that is being created. So I would focus on that. Okay, that's definitely something where my head would be. Pardon me. That's where my focal point would be. Now, if you take a look at the Dow, which I have not been paying attention to, people ask me all the time, why don't you look at the Dow? Because it's 30 stocks. The issue with these 30 stocks right now is these stocks tend to move ahead of the NASDAQ or any other real money being put to work. Why? Because they're stodgy. Because you don't have to worry about them, right? You know Caterpillar is not, you know the CEO of Caterpillar is not running away to Argentina, right? So you don't worry about these kinds of companies as much. It's not as exciting, but also it's 30 names and they're very stodgy. This is one thing I pointed out in our community yesterday. This is the highest you've ever been above the 200-day. The higher this gets, the more data points get added to this, right? So let's just say that this went up 10% and just sat there. Okay. Well, that's going to move this curling faster than if I sat here for a week, right? So you understand that just based upon the data points. So I think that's really important to understand. And every time we're above, we roll back down. Now that's going to happen until it doesn't. I'm just going to point out a couple things that I think are really pertinent. So the dollar is falling off a cliff, and then you're going to watch it try to rally today. I'm not saying it's not going to rally. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, you're in a position here where it is very clear that something has changed, right? Very clear. Now, the Fed can talk the market down all they want. Okay. And now you're seeing yields start to rally a little bit here. Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Let's see how this plays out today. I would not be a person that's going out there and going absolutely huge, okay, in shorting. I'd be really careful here in shorting these rallies. I do want to go through that. I'd be really careful there. Now, in regards to coin, I want to talk about this. So my theory on this is that it's going to get absolutely destroyed. That does not mean it's going to happen today. And by destroyed, I mean that I think it's going to be like this. So you're going to have to understand how I talk. and I'd watch the top 10 video this week. But I talk in vernacular that this is going to get destroyed, that's going to get destroyed. Doesn't mean it's going to happen on a Monday morning. It takes time. I just want to point this out. I posted this on Twitter. You should follow me on Twitter if you are not. But you see this right here? And you come back down and you're up. Okay, this is when we start doing the quote commission-free trading or the discounted trading, or hey, if you have $500,000 in an account, just do the bid and the ask, and we'll bake the spread and nothing else off of you. That's this right here. Okay. This is what transpired from there. 41 to 7. Okay. Now they earn 25 basis points. Some of these crypto names are going to make it, whether that's Binance, whether that's Coin, we don't know. Let's go on the premise that Coin, so you get this. Let's go on the premise that Coin's books are perfect, that they have zero exposure and there's zero contagion. All right. They're still making over 1.5% off of their clients. That's got to drop to 25 basis points at some point. It will drop down. Not only will that drop down, volumes are going to stop. Volumes are going to come to a screeching halt on all this stuff. So keep that in mind. So that's where my head is in regards to this. So keep that in mind. That's what I'm focused on. I'm not focused on just this contagion. I do think there's more out there. And I am very surprised that we have not seen some more fights and redemptions on some of these convertibles from some of these people that were sold a bill of goods up here. Okay. Because that's when they did these. I posted this last night when they did those zero convertibles. So I think that's really interesting. What else is interesting that's out there today? This AMD, the fact that AMD all of a sudden they're coming out and putting a buy on it, right? 2 firms put a buy on this today before NVIDIA's earnings. That's very interesting to me as well. So that's really the big cruxes that I would go over and that I would focus on. Now, let's get into it. So are we at the bottom is the question. Index is rallying. FCX shop, NEM. Yeah. One, you're hitting something right on the head, and I should probably point this out so people get this, so they can see it. So that you see this very clearly, so you can see what's going on there. So if you take a look at copper futures, okay, copper futures are just breaking out, right? I mean, we all know, I don't know if you're aware of that or not. Here, let me show you. So you can see this, but copper futures are just breaking out. So there you go. Okay. So copper futures, why is this important? It's important because as this continues to break out, FCX, SCCO, all those names are going to just trade. They're all going to move on this, right? Copper's not going to rise and the underlying securities are not going to go higher. Now, let's get back to the Trend Spider and we will go from there. So there's a link for that Trend Spider discount in the description. If I have time, I will post it. So far, I'm very behind here on what I'd like to cover today. So, but let's just get back to that. So you got to look at futures there, John, and you got to watch those, right? Because that's how it's going to move. But for me, I think there's some real, very strict struggles here that you have to kind of pay attention to. Okay. And that's what I would do. I would pay attention to what we see happening here. So what exactly do we see happening? Well, I think you see NVIDIA being upgraded, or I think you see AMD being upgraded before we see NVIDIA's earnings. I think that's really important. Okay. And I really think that's an important thing to just kind of pay attention to. Now, SCCO, this was something, I mean, I didn't expect it to move like this. This was something I was playing around down here, made a little money, and now it's just, I went on an absolute tear. You need to be really careful of these now. So this is usually when someone, will buy these breakouts and then they'll get smoked. So maybe let them consolidate down, break down a little bit, and then push higher. But Coming out of this, forming a flag and then pushing is exactly what you want to see. So that's where my focal point would be. All right, now I think you just have to be really careful with them. If you're in them, great. Would I chase them here? No, I would not chase anything here. What you want to do is you want to wait for weakness and buy that weakness. Look, you have a lot of retail names that are coming out this week. Walmart, Target, they moved the market pretty hard last time. If Walmart and Target come out and say things are bad, things are going to sell off again. All right. So, yeah, I do think that they're going to look at Alcoa too. Yeah, I think so too, John. I mean, I think that's really good for the industry, and I think it's really good for the stock. I'm surprised you're not up more, frankly. So I really am. I'm very surprised you're not up more on that information. So it's definitely something that I would be focused on. Sure, I mean it's a big deal. I don't really like Friday's action at all, not even a little bit, and it made me wonder a little bit, like, what am I missing here? Because these were great quarters, like just great quarters. And I'm not so sure you want to use the 144 level. I'm not so sure you want to be in these right now until we understand that. But I do agree with you that this looks great. Yeah, I like Sam. I think that's a very interesting trade because you have people that really want to own this name, right? They really want to own this and they're not buying it because they think they have all the time in the world. And then what happens is one day it just shoots up, right? And then people don't know why. But if you have a company that has this kind of earnings, you might want to be paying attention to it, right? Now you're starting to have that cup. And this is really what you want to focus on. I mean, if you're a long-term investor, this is exactly what you want to focus on. Start looking for stocks that are above the 200-day moving average. Okay. They're the ones that are going to lead. I mean, you don't stop looking at this. You're never going to see this again. Okay. You're just not. You're never going to see that, right? Most likely you're never going to see that again. What I tell people to do is go look at like January and go, can I get back to January's level? And if I could get back to January's level, right, is that something that would interest me, right? If I could get back to where I was in January in this range, would that interest me? The answer is yes, it would. Now, if you look at it from that perspective, you have a completely different trade, right? And you can see that level. So I think that's definitely something that you have to look at. Look at that. I mean, it doesn't get any cleaner to me, right? So you're above it, rallies, comes back, tests, breaks out. I mean, it doesn't get any cleaner that people are buying those levels. So it doesn't mean you're going to go straight up, but I would start looking for these stocks that are above the 200-day moving average. Remember, when it's time to start buying, no one's going to want to buy. Okay, just remember that when it's time to buy, no one's going to want to buy. It's just the way that it is. It's human nature. All right, keep that in mind. Yeah, FTX, I don't know what's going on there. And then he sent out a tweet last night. That was pretty fascinating. Len, cost, daily, weekly charts, please. Sure, of course, Cam. So let's get into those. So something like Lenair, these kinds of names that you have some housing data that's going to come out this week. These names are so beaten down that they absolutely can go higher. Absolutely. Start looking for these names that are above the 200-day moving average. 100% can go higher. Okay. It's really clear that if you're looking long-term and you're watching these stocks that were beaten down, now forget about this. But if you just went to January and looked at this and said, could this get back here? And what does that look like? That is not a bad spot to be, right? Tried to get above the 200, couldn't. Took about 3-4 months to develop longer. all of a sudden that 50 catches, right? So that you're right, you have your resistance and it becomes your support, and then it breaks out. So you form a flag and you go. I mean, if you really wanted to play it, you'd play this, right? You could play that. Now you have Home Depot and Lowe's this week, right? So both of those are coming out with numbers this week, I think. Just make sure on that before I tell you something. Yep. So Home Depot will be out, and then Lowe's is usually right behind it, right? So let's just double check that. Yeah. So you're going to have to be careful there, right? Because those stocks are going to move. But if you see some kind of pullback because of that, you could also utilize that pullback to get in there. I like these names. I mean, they are so beaten down, but you have to think about it, Cam. You're looking out like super long term. You know, this is something when I did that study in September on like when to buy Toll Brothers, it was all in here if you had patience, right? It was this whole area because you were trading under book value. It will go unless we go through something like the financial crisis. These names will hold. And, you know, I'm not so sure. Here's the mortgage industry. See that catching from 20 back to 25. So I'm not so sure that you need to look at this too. I thought this was kind of interesting, starting to see people buying Japan again. So you're starting to see this reinflate a little bit. And I pay attention to it. I like that, Cam. I think it's a great idea. Costco, you're going to just be all over the place, right? You have earnings. So when you have earnings like that, you're just going to have to watch, right? Now, you have earnings coming up and you have a lot of companies that are retail coming up. But if you can start getting above this 200 and stay above it, because here, let's get rid of this for a moment and let's get rid of all my annotations. And you should be able to see the wedge, Cam, but I'll just draw it real quick. So you're coming into a kill zone, right? It's a big kill zone and it's going to take some time, right? So you're not really, I'll just throw it right there, right? I mean, you undercut, boom, bonk. So, and then you come back down and then you don't hold, right? So it's giving you some signals here that we're getting tighter, right? You can see that pretty clearly. And then you can see it's already made a decision on this point, right? So it's telling you that you're probably going higher. Okay, it's telling you that you're at least probably going to test this DTL, which gets you up to about 532, get through 532, watch 542.60, and kind of work your way up it, right? But I like it. I do like that idea. It is in the right space. Even if you go through a recession or whatever, people are going to buy in bulk, and they're going to buy Costco. People love their Costco. So keep that, just keep that in mind. But it does look good. What's up, Timo? What's going on, Ant? What's going on, O? Sophie, let's take a look. Yep, if you could take a second and just like this video, it helps me greatly with the algorithm. The more people in here, the more success we can all have. It does help a lot to get different ideas and different opinions. There's 8,000 stocks in the market. There's no way I can watch it all. So again, this is what I would do with these kinds of names. I'd go back to January and go, is this realistic for this to get back there? In this case, I got to be honest, I don't think this is very realistic. You have a huge overhang and you have a lot of people that want to get out of this and recapitalize. So I think this one's going to be a little harder for me to tell you and get all excited about. Okay. What does that mean? It just means what I just said. So keep that in mind in the back of your head when you're trading. But I thought the quarter was good. I actually like Anthony Noto. I think he did a great job at Twitter fixing their books, and their books fell apart as soon as he left. He's the CEO. He's sickly brilliant. And you can see this absolutely trade up to this level in the 7. If that's what you're looking for, great. I'm not sure you're going to see this again, ever. So that's kind of where my head is with it. I don't see anybody buying that company right now in this kind of environment. What do I think the SPY is going to do? I don't know, man. If I knew, I'd be on an island, right? So I'd own an island, not be on one. But here's what I think is going to happen, right? Here's my personal opinion. I think that people are never going to believe when, let's clean it all off. I think people are never going to believe when we're going to rally, right? They're never going to believe when we're going to rally. And the amount of people that are just telling me we're going to roll right back over. And so if I had to tell you where the like tail risk is, right? Tail risk means what is the highest degree of probability where people can get hurt the worst, right? Where is that risk right now? It's on the, to me, it's on the right side of the chart, which means the tail risk to me is that you're going up, right? So if you're on the left side of the chart, it's telling you, I can do a whole video on this, but it's basically telling you that the risk is to the downside. The risk is not to the downside here, okay? The risk is to the upside if you're short right now, and you're seeing it, right? So let me just, what do I mean by that? Well, coin's a disaster, right? So we know coin's a disaster, but we come in today and here, like, look at this. Let me show you what I mean, right? So coin's a disaster, but you come in today, right? And now you're bouncing all around. You're up here, you're down here, right? You're all over the place, right? So we don't have a clear shot on what exactly is going on there, but we'll figure it out, okay? But we're not falling apart on something that we should really be falling apart on. Like, this is not falling apart, right? Falling apart is, you know, like you come in, you're down 10, 15% every day. We're not doing that, right? We're bouncing around. We're having a good time. We're not doing any of that. So the point that I'm getting at here is that if you start to see that, you need to be really cautious. So like if really bad news is not knocking us down, like this thing should, just to put this in perspective so you can understand where I'm going with this here, look, get rid of these indicators and realize this is when they said they were going to buy Bitcoin. Okay, that's when they said they were going to buy Bitcoin. Okay, 135. Since they bought Bitcoin, they've lost $2 billion and they have billions more in debt. The stock's not even back to break even. So the fact that this is even holding here is just amazing to me, right? All this stuff should have cracked. When you see signs like this, doesn't mean it doesn't slowly go down, but when you see this, you got to have your antenna up, right? So to answer your question about the SPY, I think you have to think about which way is the risk, right? So if I'm looking at the SPY and going, which way is the risk? Forget about, am I going to 392 to 408 to bounce around again? You're going to go the way that Walmart goes tomorrow. You're going to go the way that Target goes tomorrow, right? The day after. So that's really where my head is with it, right? But if you were looking at this, okay, and let's say it's not the SPY, and you were looking for some kind of sign, well, there's your undercut. There's your CPI number. Here's your other CPI number. Okay. So something's going on where people are buying the CPI and seeing something that they don't, or that they like. Okay. Here's a higher high through a resistance point, right? Bonk, bonk, right? Support flips to what? Right? Resistance, bonk, bonk, flips back, support, goes, support, runs, resistance, 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 support. So you see that level, right? So you can see how that level, that 388, 390 level might be something that we could consider as a level that we might want to watch on longer term trades. You come up here and you see that 403 level and you're kind of paying attention to that too. I think the idea that we're just going to miraculously stop again here, which I thought was ridiculous last time, it could absolutely happen again. Absolutely. Do I think that it does? I'm not so sure because it's changed, right? We've changed. We've gone from, well, we might have to start slowing the bond buying down. Well, then this little peak where they came out and said, well, we might have to stop bond buying. Well, we're going to have to start raising rates. Okay. Well, that was all that inflation data. And now you're here. So it's one big trade to me. If I was going to tell you where I think you would reject, I think you would reject at this 403.10 and maybe that 200's there. You reject, pull back, maybe retest 390. I mean, what I'd love to see is this. And right, and man plans, God laughs, right? So I'd love to see something like that, test, come back down. Everybody thinks it's not going to go. And then this, right? That is the healthiest thing. I don't know if we're going to get that or we're just going to go up, or how we're going to act here. But that would be the healthiest if we could see something like that. Yeah, BLK and NVDA. I'm going to have to move a little faster here. So, yep, these are the kinds of names you want to look at. I mean, look, this date, it just doesn't get any clearer that financials were just, that's the bottom. The bottom in financials is in. It's not debatable anymore. Okay, you can go through any of these charts, any of these financials, and you can see the bottom's in, right? So why would the bottom be in, and why are these people buying financials? Because they think that rates have peaked, right? So now they know what peak rates are. Now they can hedge themselves and they can start lending money and making the difference. And that's what people are realizing. And that's why people are buying these names, and it's working. It's working very well, and it will continue to work. Okay. So I like them. I like all the financial names. So I would absolutely be all over this. I mean, if you're a long-term investor, you have to buy that with a long-term outlook. I think that this can push. I mean, you have earnings this week. I think it's pretty telling that you're seeing AMD upgrades today ahead of that. Let's just go through this. Good morning, Mill. Oh, thanks. I think we're going to do that regularly. I think that was helpful to people to actually see. That's what I do in the trading room, like what we do in the trading community during the morning. We just do the live trading. I do think that was helpful for people, though, to see that, and we'll do more of those, I think. What's going on, brother? Let's take a look. Yep. I mean, I like that name. I think we got stopped out. We lost money in the trading room on that one, right? And then, yeah. And now look, no, we still have that position, don't we? Stop 50%, 109. Did you get me out here? Yeah, we're out. So, I mean, I know I'm out, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, do I want to play this game again? I don't know. I don't know that I want to play that game right now. Maybe over 117, maybe. But there's so many other things that are just going to outperform this now. I'm not so sure I want to play with this. If I'm looking long term, it makes a lot of sense to have exposure to the space. And I would have exposure there if I wanted to have pot exposure. Yep. Please like the video. It does help me greatly with the algorithm. And I purposely do not run ads on the videos, which would drive me crazy. I think it's very reasonable. I think if you look at Netflix, you're watching them buy value. This was a trade we had previously in the newsletter. Free new version of it is below. And for those asking about the trading community and the emails that I get, it's closed and there is a wait list, and that link is in the description below. I was going to try and post that. I think I actually have that. Hold on one second. Did I do that? Yeah, I did do that. There you go. There's your wait list. Let me just put the community wait list. So I will post that up. I'll post that if I get a chance to. I don't think I'm going to have that time. But there's the link to the wait list for those that are asking. Now, let's get back to this. So I personally think that this is just going to just run, is my personal belief on it, right? So, yeah, do I think you can get there? Yeah, I think this is very realistic. I think you get through that, you're heading to here. You're not going to flip 305 and not test 333. It's not going to happen, because as you're pushing up, this 200 is going to start curling up. You could hit it, bounce, right? But you're going to gap fill. There's no question about it. Since you broke out of that gap fill, right? All they did was take stops out, break the 200, flush people out, and then run right back over, right? So even if you bought here, right? And then even if you ran this the whole way up and then you got stopped out, who cares? You're break even after 2 weeks. So what? But then those people bought back here, right? Or they bought back here, right? And they paid up. Now they're going to use that as their stop if they're long-term investors, right? So I think this could absolutely rip. When you come back, retest, and then go, it's substantially more powerful than just going. Because now not only do you have the people that get back in, but you have a whole new wave of people that only buy that particular setup. So I like that a lot. SOXL. So Janice should be looking at SCCO and FCX is the other ones I'd focus on. Smash the like button. Where are we? Managing SOXL. Let's take a look at that. Yeah. So something like this, I think you need to really take a hard look at. I think names like this, you could look back and go, do you remember when we could have got that for X? And I think if you don't put some money to work in names like this, you're going to kind of regret it. That's where my head is. I'm going to have to jump here. I'm going to have to start cutting these off at 9 to jump in the trading room. So that's what we have for today. Any questions, as always, reach out. Links are in description. There's a ton of links in there about educational videos too. TrendSpider is doing that 65% off. I did tell them I'd mention that. The link's in description for that. Any other questions, you can always reach me there. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Trade to win.